We're almost there. We go, and we're rolling, and we're live. So welcome everyone to our May Entrepreneur Mastermind. We have got Rustika from New Zealand. Hello, Rustika.
Hey.
And we have Alan all the way in the UK. Hello, Alan.
Hi, Roger. Hi, everybody.
All right. So this is going to be a fabulous little video we are doing here, all about follow the flow. So if you're in a situation where you're thinking, where is the flow in the markets when there's some like what $8-9 trillion a day just flowing, then this is the core that's for you. So this is going to be one of the biggest things for anyone getting started, or even if you're starting something new, if what you're doing is flowing fine, but the new thing's not, it's like, how do you make that happen? So before I come over to Rustika and Alan, let me share a couple of things with everyone. It's going to be a super exciting call. We have some great things to share with you that we've been busy behind the screens on as we've been going. But what I'm going to start with is the people that have already been posting things on our spreadsheet. So here is the spreadsheet, and we have got a number of questions we're going to come back to in a little bit. So a few of you have been starting to post questions. It's still early days, so there's more questions I'm sure that will be coming. So go ahead, post them as we go. We have quite a few successes that are going on here. We got John here. He has been traveling all over the world. Incredible month of adventure over in the US for a global training conference. Despite being away, we had our best month ever on our business with a monthly turnover of $200,000. And what was impacted through was the growth of future marketing, coaching, consulting part of the business. So this is like a whole new business that John started off the back of Fast Forward called Future Marketing, which is basically being a futurist for marketing teams, which is pretty awesome. We have here discovered an opportunity to connect 2 financial planning firms, where one firm is led by a supporter profile, has an additional 200 new leads per year that our team cannot handle. Another firm has 2 new developing accumulator advisors, and they need new clients. So that's one way to create business for people, which is awesome. We got a few other ones here. You know, Allison working with Automation Lab as meant to be getting our ducks in a row, which is great. We've got here Phil, hi Roger, last month's crystal circle call with you made it crystal clear that I was digging in the desert. This is exactly what this call is all about. It's like, how do you actually follow the flow, which is what we're going to get into. So drop your questions in here. And also we have got here the actual Entrepreneur Mastermind link that's on here as well. So anyone who's got any additional things you want to post, comments you want to post, you can post it in there as well. Say hi, say that you're here. And now we are going to kick into the call. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to start, actually, I'll tell you what else I'm going to do. I'm going to share the first few slides to introduce why I've asked Rustika and Alan onto this course. So here is the slide here. Follow the flow, May 2017. Rustika with her nice hat on, and Alan. I always take the profile shots. So this is going to be an interesting conversation, because with Rustika, she's actually been stepping as a supporter profile, stepping from one development into another, and each one just gets bigger as it goes. So we're going to kind of see how, when you're stepping into the flow grows and grows and grows. And at the moment here, you've got Genius School, which is something which we're very excited about, that's growing out of our network. That is really the shift in the whole education system. We have Alan here with Vet Dynamics, great little website here as well. So we're going to hear also from Alan and how he kind of tapped into the flow of what we're doing and how he's kind of grown from there. Follow the flow is the 3rd step at red level. So if you don't do this and you try and go up to yellow level, which is I'm building my identity, I'm creating a promotion plan, and you're not tapped into the flow, you're not connected to the flow, which is what happens at orange level, then clearly it means you're digging in the desert instead of digging in a river, right? And that means you don't end up with a river, you end up with a hole. And so this is basically making sure you're tapping into that flow first. It's a little bit like kind of complaining that the kettle's not boiling when you never plugged it into the mains first, right? So following the flow is about connecting into the electricity, connecting into the flow of the market before you start expecting the kettle to do anything, right? And it's exactly the same with business. If you haven't plugged into where the market is, you can have the most awesome products, you can have the most awesome marketing, you can have the most awesome website, and no one's visiting it, right? And it doesn't start by creating a website and then hoping people come to it. That's like having a kettle and hoping someone's going to come and give you the mains. It doesn't work that way. You've got to go to where the mains is and plug it in there, as opposed to kind of like sit where you are, thinking the electricity is just going to come to you, right? Which is like sitting in the desert thinking the river's going to come to you. So this is all about really mastering personal flow first, and understanding that personal flow happens when you tap into flow, not when you expect flow to tap into you. So with that being said, I'm going to jump right into it. And Rustika, I'd love for you to share when we first met what you were doing and just the first couple of pathways you took that actually got you into the flow by following where that flow was happening. I'd love for you to share that story with everyone.
Okay, that's great. So I basically, after the property crash, wanted to use my supporter profile, and I thought maybe the best way to do that would be to, because I was always as a contractor, so property market crash, I went contracting as an instructional designer, and I'll do 6 to 12-month contracts, and all these recruiters would ring me and go, well, are you free? No. Who do you know? I'll go talk to them, and they'd make the money. So I'm going, this is not good. I think I can do this myself. So basically went to another recruiter who was in a non-competing, he was an IT recruiter, and said, hey, let's do a partnership, but I want to do it in the e-learning space. So again, when you talk about tapping into flow and not digging in the desert, he already had a business, and I thought we could, those connections. He didn't have the same view, so we didn't last long. I actually ended up buying him out. And so the second piece of advice you gave me was around the eLearns conference, which is actually on again this year. So that was in 2013, so it's now 4 years later. And it just keeps doubling and doubling, and took your advice, and and this is when I realised that this strategy works, and I still use it to this day, which is actually tapping into someone else's, parachuting in and tapping into their reputation, their connections. So I went to the biggest e-learning company in New Zealand and said, hey, we're putting on an e-learning conference. New Zealand doesn't have an e-learning conference, and we still to this day are the only e-learning conference in New Zealand. And we've got all these people to pay us to be sponsors, and they paid us like $10,000 to be a platinum sponsor. And since then it's just grown and grown. So, and right up until this day, I still, I'll be connecting with amazing speakers from overseas and bringing them into New Zealand. And then that just helps my reputation and my business grows. So, yeah.
So on both, I'm going to pause on both of those two things, because a lot of people, the biggest thing that I see with many people when they're getting started is they get all excited with their idea. And the idea they're having is as a result of your consciousness flow, right? And your consciousness flow is the opposite of your unconscious flow, right? Your consciousness flow is the thing that's going to stop you. It's your ego getting in the way. It's basically saying, I've got the best idea, or, hey, this idea came up. I bet I could make this work. And what Rustika is sharing is, first of all, getting into flow was saying, right, well, who actually needs my value right now? And they're, and at the time, the guy was actually already wanting you to go join his company, but you're like, I don't really want to get into recruitment. But when you saw that there was the ability to go help him and actually get into what you really want to do, which is e-learning, then you could be of value to him. He could pass you clients. He already had the reputation. And then that led to you, then actually taking it on. The second thing is that with, and so it wasn't your product you were creating at all. It was just putting your time into where there was flow. And secondly, by knowing you wanted to go and be of value to the to the whole industry, going and saying, hey, let's do something that's of value to the industry, and getting them to then actually say, well, here's who we want as a speaker. Here's what's going to make it valuable, to the extent that it would be difficult for them to say no if there's an industry event going on, which, I mean, that's such an important part. If you've gone along and said, hey, I want to get involved in this industry, and you started trying to climb the mountain as opposed to parachuting in, it would have taken you years longer to get to the same place, basically. So always looking at what is it that people really are looking for, and then serving them where they're at, as opposed to trying to get them to meet you where your product is at, which might mean just kind of like putting your product aside for a while, coming back to it later, because you already had all sorts of ideas of what you wanted to do in e-learning and so on, but you put them all aside until you actually had built trust and a reputation as well, right? Let me ask another thing. From that point, when you actually then were getting into flow, you were, there's only so much money you can make by doing a big conference, because they cost a lot of money as well. But you were then able to then monetize that by getting much more into kind of like the workshops and other things as well. Do you want to share, once you get into flow and the revenues start coming in, how you can then turn that into more of a business out of it once you've built your reputation?
Yeah, so I got known sort of in the market to, I knew all the good people. So people would come to us and say, look, we've got a project on, that you obviously know everybody, you're the go-to person for that, or Bloom's the go-to person for that, or company. So we were basically putting contractors out and taking a margin. And you're right, yeah, we also were doing a lot of workshops as well. So actually upskilling the industry, because the industry, and it still does need quite a bit of upskilling in terms of designing really good, engaging e-learning, engaging just really good learning, actually, full stop. So yeah, so we sort of productize that, and can continue now. We're probably not doing as many workshops now because there's other providers doing it, and it's not our core focus. So we have morphed into, gone from recruitment to learning solutions to learning technology. So we're really focusing just on learning tech now, and the associated development of content to go with that technology. So yeah, it's been a bit of a journey.
With that, I mean, with that whole, like, when you started doing the workshops, right? Because how did you decide what for those first workshops were going to be? Did you ask them what kind of like, you know, what it was kind of like turn out at your first workshops? How much you were charging? What did that kind of look like?
Well, I did the first one because you almost boosted me off Crystal Circle for doing nothing for 8 months. I thought I'd better go and do a promotion. What can I do quickly so that next month I've made some money? So yeah, so basically the next day after that call, I think that was January, when I was complaining I had no money. And Rustika, how many promotions did you run last year? None. How many have you got going out? None. Go and do a promotion. I actually honestly thought you were going to say, don't come back. So I quickly did it. This is my first year. 4 years later, luckily I'm still there. And basically the next day did a promotion, and within the week had 10 people paying $1,000. It was amazing. The money was dropped into the account. So it was very cool.
Yeah. So straight away, like, as the moment you said, right, I'm going to do it now. And you built enough trust with people that people knew who you were, they knew what you could deliver. And so then, of course, they were willing to come in as well, right? So that speed action, once you actually say, well, now I'm going to go to trust me, you don't have that trust. You got to start by building the trust, and you don't build the trust by trying to sell your product. You build the trust by basically serving them where they're at, right? So that's what following the flow is all about, and that's what you did. So I'm going to come back to you in a moment, Rustika, but that's a great little intro into Rustika and how. And by the way, when I met Rustika, you were in infrared level because you were like had a whole bunch of property investments from what you were doing then. You kind of like unraveled all of that and then got back, you know, basically to red, then to orange, and then obviously at this point now it's a yellow level, right? So that can happen very quickly, provided you're then, you know, willing to let go of the stuff you're holding on to, like your idea or whatever you want to do, and then you drive it forward. What I really like about Alan's story is that Alan, you know, has gone out and built his own whole brand by taking a lot of the things that he sees with orthodynamics and saying, look, I can niche this in a particular area, which is with vets. But I'd love you to share, Alan, you know, that journey you went on of saying, right, that's the brand I'm going to use, and then how you built trust with that once you actually got into that with the vets as well. Hey, Alan.
Okay, thanks, Roger. It's since you asked me to come on this call, it's made me sit down and consider that backstory that goes way back, and I won't bore you with the whole one because it's quite long. But it has been a step up of consciousness and levels each time that goes through. But thinking back on that particular question you asked, I qualified as a vet in Australia in 1979, and I just stepped straight into the veterinary world as it was construed. So vets are nice people. They obviously earn lots of money. They save the world one puppy at a time. And we just do what we do, just serve and deliver. I always felt there was
save the world one puppy at a time. I like that.
What we do. So I went through that process, came to England. That was part of the journey. That was an interesting thing to actually pack up, leave Australia and move over here. Was sort of a step in exploratory, seeing what the world does. Great place to be a vet over here. Built my own business up, was reasonably successful with that. But there's always this, I'd reached a certain level and needed to do something more. By the way, I'm pure creator, mechanic with star aspirations in there. But I sold my business in 97 to do something different. I went into consultancy. So I left the veterinary profession and so I was sort of tapping into, I knew consultancy was kind of the area. I liked training. I was doing some technical advice for one of the drug companies. I was standing in front of their people, teaching them about basic things like what's an antibiotic and things like that. I just loved doing that stuff. I went off and did a management diploma as well, because I just thought, and the interesting thing, the college I went to do my management diploma at wouldn't let me join. They said, but you're a vet, why do you need management? And they almost didn't let me through the interview, and I had to convince them to let me go into that. So it was acquiring of those skills. Consultancy was then trying another set of skills I needed to take that on. But that was a small company working well. Then I got the call back to the veterinary profession, who were saying, actually, you know a bit about this stuff. We don't. Can you come and help us do some of these things? And just looking back at my profession, there was just this massive need for something around management and marketing and people management, all sorts of things, which I didn't know much about, but I thought I can find out. So I was fortunate in that I got a job doing some data analysis for a drug company who collected industry data, needed a front man to analyze it and present it. So I tapped into that flow, and that gave me a bit of guru status. And then I got another opportunity to develop a business management course for one of the training providers, big training providers. And that gave me a free hand to really develop the material. And what do vets need to know? Well, they're hopeless at time management, so let's do a time management module. They're hopeless at finance, so let's do a finance module. They're hopeless at leadership and communication. So we just built those, and I just pilfered the whole profession. Same time, I was looking for mentors myself, and I was going through the usual run of mostly marketing mastermind groups that seemed to be the big thing. So there was the Daniel Wagner stuff, there was Simon Coulson stuff, there was Jonathan Jay stuff, all of which were teaching me the sort of group training business model. And I took that on as well. So I was just collecting stuff, but not doing anything particularly of my own. I was getting my own few clients, but I was always value add to someone else in that process, but then taking what they had to offer and then trying to reconstrue it into my profession of what they needed. But the result of that, by 2008, 2009, I was the busiest person on the planet, driving north, south, east, west around the UK, trying to deliver this stuff. I'd been divorced by that time. I still had 3 kids at private school. I had 2 other jobs, vetting and otherwise, holding the world together. So deep infrared. In fact, it was below that somewhere. And then I had a aortic aneurysm diagnosed, and the world said, stop, change of pace here. And my brother came over and we did stuff together, and we developed a new model, which was then pulling all that stuff together, said, how do we make this work for vets? And so we built our mastermind classes, and we got groups of vets coming to us, delivering the management curriculum. And that was during that time in 97, I suppose. I can't remember, but John Williams, one of your guys, introduced Wealth Dynamics to me at that point.
So I'm going to pause, Alan, I'm going to pause you for a sec, right? Just before we go into that section around the branding, because that's a cool story. But there's a really important point here, because on the last call we had Paul Evans on the call, and and he had a very similar story about having just been full on. And what always happens when you're getting really strong at yellow level is you've got all this attraction, and obviously what happens is you end up losing all your time, and you haven't even got the time to productize what you're doing. So you're just going from appointment to appointment, session to session, and that's exactly what happens until it's kind of like pedaling along, in first gear, and like you haven't gone to another gear, and so you just had a heart attack, right? It's like, and he went through that moment when he really realized, this is ridiculous, I have to change this. So can you talk us through how were you feeling at that moment? How much of a shock did it come that you were like on your back, and it was like, and what went through your mind, what went through your thoughts around what had to change and how fast it had to change?
Being a typical bloke, I ignored it completely. But yeah, it was as a child, I had an aortic stenosis. So I had an operation when I was 15 to sort out a constriction in the aorta. And that was back in 1970 something, when they were still treating goats and guinea pigs much the same way as humans. But that worked. But as a result of that, this aneurysm developed, which is a swelling above that fix. And it was just a routine checkup. Fortunately, they did an MRI, and I can still remember the radiographer's face. He's sort of sitting in his room playing with his computer, and he's looking at the MRI as it's coming through, and then his eyes almost bugged out of his head, and you could almost see him saying, oh shit, and we've got a problem here. At which stage he said, slow down. So I had, as you say, I was in full tilt, first gear going, and I couldn't really feel I could stop. I was going to let too many people down, etc. So it took Vicky, my now wife, and my brother to come over from Australia and just make me stop. I was just so full tilt, out of control, I think, that even that wasn't enough to slow me down. But I do have this picture of me in the intensive care with everything that bleeps and buzzes attached to me. and people around me in an ICU dying and other such things. And I sort of sitting there in the darkness of the night thinking, well, actually, no, this needs a change. But it was, even then, I think it was not particularly dark. It was just, well, what can I do differently? And that's when that stopped and gave me the creative space to start coming up with the new ideas and moving it forward. And I got quite excited about that. It gave me something to move forward to. Yeah. And I wasn't in danger. They did the operation. They put an endo stent in.
Okay.
I would have been. I wasn't ill. I would have just gone pop. And that would have been.
Yeah.
And that would be peace.
Wow. So, lucky. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and I think the point about flow is that perhaps we need, and you'll probably say, we need those moments to say, as Paul did last time, stop and reflect. And it's pity we need something like that to make it happen. Can we actually induce that in ourselves to get that change of pace?
Well, yeah. I mean that's the thing. If we don't take the small signs, then the big signs come along and kind of knock us over. So that always, universe has a way of starting subtly and at the end being very unsubtle about the fact that we need to change. So in that, you then met John. John then introduced you to Wealth Dynamics, and then how did you then package it up and create Wealth Dynamics out of that? And what was the result that you saw after you did that?
Okay, so I loved the Wealth Dynamics stuff. I used it myself and kept it to myself. I didn't really use it in my consultancy or my work, and otherwise we were using some other profiles, HBDI and a few other things like that for communication. But I followed you, I looked at the material, and it wasn't really until last year that we're making another step change. And I was also in growing my business. So the last 4 or 5 years, I've gone from 4 people to 16 in the business. And that's been a major step up as well. And I thought, well, how do I do that? And it was really, again, tapping into someone else's flow, yours, basically, because I saw you growing your business from where you were to a national, international, global sort of situation. And I said, well, there's another model I can follow. So let's go down that path. So hence we hooked up, and I've been coming to you fast forwards for the past 3 or 4 years. We decided last year, I came across and did flow consultancy in Bali. Then Vicky and I both came over for Crystal Circle and Masters. And I would say Masters is where the whole thing came together. As a package, I had the ideas, but then that week of just immersion in it gave us the opportunity. And in that, I knocked out the 2020 vision for ourselves. The interesting thing, I was pretty well out of flow before that because my business was quite successful. It was doing very well. We were $1 million+ turnover, quite respected in the market. But they didn't need a creator anymore in the business because the value was there. What we're now trying to do is leverage it. So I'm in the office here on my own because that's where they keep me now. They keep me away from everybody. Because if I go in and disrupt them with more ideas, they just throw their hands up and tell me to go away. So we're in that part of the tempo steel part of the cycle that I'm not needed. So I needed something like Masters to give me, I think you've said it, you need a higher perspective to give you that range. So the 2020 now, and I've come back here, delivered that to these guys, got them all flow consultant trained up, and now we're all talking the same language, all have somewhere to go, and it's just the next level of flow. That's energized me, energized the business, and I think we're doing some real good in the profession as well as a result.
Brilliant. Very cool. Very cool. Okay, so there's some really important distinctions here that I want to make about this follow the flow that you just heard from Helen and we just heard from Rastika. So I'm going to share a few slides, and then we're going to go to a second part of the story because both of them have a kind of a second part as we go into this as well, which I'm going to kind of like direct as we go. Then I'm going to give you some examples, like I said, some really cool things that we're doing at the moment, which links into all this as well. So the first thing is, let me just share this first slide, which is you've all seen this. This is the steps in the spectrum levels, and I want to make a really important point about what people today are buying more than anything. Some of you have heard me talk about predictability. People are buying predictability. What that means is people are buying what they trust is going to give them a certain result more than anything else, right? If they want to have a problem solved, they don't want to have people promising them they're going to have it solved. They want to have something that they can trust is actually going to solve it. And what's really important is when you're at infrared or red level, What people are really looking for in predictability is not trust in the past, it's trust in the future. If you're at infrared or red level, they have no trust that you can do something in the future because they can see at the moment that the results of your energy and everything like that. So when you say, I'm going to have this great product, it's going to do this great thing, or I'm going to have this great business, no one actually trusts it's true. I mean, they'll say, hey, good luck with it, because they don't want to hurt your feelings. They'll say, good luck with it. They might even say, I really like your idea, which then gets you really excited about it, right? But they're not going to pay you money. Why? Because they're not yet trusting it's actually going to work, because you don't have enough customers yet, or if any customers, for them to be able to trust it, right? So they don't have that ability to trust. By the time you get up to red level, what's really happening is someone is not actually trusting what you can do in the future. What someone's really trusting is maybe what you've done in the past. So for example, when you go and get a job, you give your resume. The resume is giving no predictability of how good you're going to be in the future. But someone's actually taking a risk to say, well, at least I can see they did good things in the past. So if I can somehow use their time in such a way with the fact that they can be trusted by people in the past, then maybe I'll be able to trust them in the future as well. So they're willing to pay you month after month, right? After some probation period, which is them basically testing you themselves, right? But if you're not willing to actually be tested, right? To say, hey, I'm willing to give you my time, or what Rastika did, which is like, hey, I'll partner up with you, or hey, I'll do this conference. Then there's no way to build an actual trust where they can say, I actually trust you're going to do something for the future because I can see every time you say you're going to do something, you actually do it. You haven't had that track record yet. But if you team up with other people, then you can, right? You can team up with the sponsors. You can team up with, in Alan's case, he had trust with people who knew of him already. And then through word of mouth, one thing leads to another. And so that's the most important thing. By the time you get to orange level worker, someone's actually now trusting that you are going to be able to deliver in the short-term future, which means probably a month at a time. And so they're going to give you tasks, and it's very task-based. And if you're hiring someone orange level, you don't need to know where they want to go a year or 5 years down the line, because you're not even trusting they know themselves yet, because most of the time they don't. But if you actually then say, hey, well, can you do this? And you're trying it out, then it can work. By the time you get to yellow level, someone's willing to pay more money to you or give you a higher share of something, because you're now trusted to do something on a bigger level. So we're right now doing this $1 million promotion, and we've hired people that we trust can get the result because they're showing us they can get that result. And it's not just a result in terms of their time, it's the result in terms of their brand. It's the result in terms of the product they're delivering now. But as long as they come with a package, then we'll take it, right? Which means that you're still stuck at yellow level, but at least they trust. So it's gone with your time, with your expertise, and your surrounding products you're going to deliver, that people then feel comfortable that they can pay you more money because they're going to get a higher result. And you're now talking usually about 2 to 3 months out. They trust you can actually deliver. But if you say, hey, I'm going to go here 3 years in the future, they're not yet trusting that because they haven't seen you be consistent enough, and you don't have a strong enough team to deliver something without you, right? By the time you get up to green level, someone's willing to trust you out a year or further, right? I mean, like you see these CEOs who paid millions of dollars because they're actually trusted to deliver from one annual report to the next annual report. So you're now basically looking at someone and saying, hey, I trust this person over the next year. I want a longer term relationship with them. And now it's all about trusting not just them, but their team as well, which is why basically someone can actually say, hey, my team can do this. And another word of talking about team is product, right? The product is delivered by the team. It's not even you that's involved in it. People can now trust that too. But you need to build the trust one by one. And then by the time you get to blue, people are trusting 3 years, 5 years out. I mean, people will pay a developer for a property that hasn't even been built yet. I still remember when I was in Singapore and I was looking at a building called The Sale. And when I was looking at that building, I was hearing that there was, like properties that were still available in The Sale, which are like $1.5 million. And so I was really excited about this. So I kind of went down because I thought, oh, if I buy one of these properties, it's going to go up in value and I can rent it out and so on. It was right in the middle of town. And I still remember going down to the developers and saying, so tell me more about this one where, this is a high floor. Yeah, 60th floor. Wow. Okay, 60th floor. What's the view like? It's like, well, difficult to say what the view like, blah, blah. I said, can you show me where this is going to be? And so this is so surreal. We walk outside. It's the building site. And the guy he points up at the sky and he says, yeah, your apartment's going to be about there. And so I'm looking at this like empty space that I'm going to pay $1 million for, right? I'm thinking, the guy's selling empty space, but because I trust that this company will build enough like layers in between me and that empty space, and then put windows around it, and then put an escalator up, elevator, and so on. I'm actually willing to put a deposit down right now for that piece of empty space. I mean, that is trust at the level where people are willing to spend millions, right? Because it's something that's happening now 5 years out. So all investors know they're putting in money for something that's 5 years out, but they're never going to do that unless there's someone they trust, someone who's built track record, who understands flow to get to that level. So everyone else can do it if we just focus on that one thing, which is how much do people trust me to deliver for them? And if the answer is not at all, don't go out trying to sell a product. Go out and connect a flow where you can then actually show someone that you can be trusted to increase the money they're making or what they're delivering, right? So I think while you get it, is you got to still let go of the thing you're doing, because it's the biggest thing that I see in entrepreneurs is this one step, is that they don't take it. They go, no, I still got to do my thing. How can I sell my product? Let it go, get with the customer, find out what the customer really, really wants. And then one thing I'm going to share here, which is super important, is what are the tools to build that trust. So here are a couple of slides. First one here is a slide of how fast the flow and how big the wave of flow is now growing, right? This is basically the GDP of the world, which has gone up by over 600%. It's over 70 billion GDP. And the actual, and this is like the actual gross domestic products, the actual amount of products that are created, which is different from the amount of money that flows, because a lot of money flows where there's no product created, right? Or tempo money, which is basically for transactions, like buying and selling on the share market. There's no actual value that's created in terms of products that are created. So GDP basically just measures the dynamo value. It's not measuring the tempo value. Tempo value is all the transactions that happen, all currency markets, everything. That basically is a multiple of this. So it's in the trillions, right? So multiple trillions, right? This is 70 trillion for the year. You have basically about 8 or 9 trillion per day that actually flows. And that flow goes from hand to hand, from person to person, right? And this continues to grow, right? It's not like it's getting smaller. So we're getting to $100 trillion by 2020, which is a ridiculous amount of money. If you think about it, that we've got 7 billion people on the planet, right? That you divide that up and you've basically got everyone having a pretty big chunk. And you can see that almost all of it is the growth within Asia, Australia, Africa, basically these areas here, Middle East. This is where we operate, right? So this is where we have most of our people on this call, in this areas here. And what we're building to actually allow that capital to grow is not financial capital. You don't have to start by saying, I need financial capital. You have to start by building intellectual capital and social capital. This is below here, right? Intellectual capital is your ideas or the ideas of people around you that you're leveraging. So you hear, like, I think it's great what Rustika shared by kind of connecting the dots together. She was able to be of value to an industry. You heard it with Jacqueline, who was saying, hey, I've got 2 insurance companies. I connected them both together. And then she's adding value to both sides because of that. That's basically taking intellectual capital, which is what you know, and linking it with social capital, which is who you know, right? And it's basically being of service to people of who you know. If you just have intellectual capital, which is here's my product, then it's of no value. But you have intellectual capital, which is how you can be of value to people, and then you actually are then connecting with those people. That builds the iceberg, and then before you know it, the top pops out, and that's where the money flows, right? So understanding in that way, don't be looking for the money or the equity or all these kind of things that the more you share it, the smaller they get. That's the lack economy. Think about it in terms of the things you share, the more it grows, right? This is like the time, the skills, the knowledge, connections, empowerment, trust, and how as trust grows, all the opportunities grow as well, right? So I'm going to come back to Rustika, and I'm going to ask Rustika just to share that next shift that's taken you now to be focusing at Genius School, working with Angie, like how that happened. And I know you've shared it at the Crystal Conference but for people new on this call, like what actually happened in terms of showing up and being present and then opening up yourself to opportunities, knowing you're ready for the next step, and how that then led to what you're doing right now.
Well, the pink hat photo is actually when that actually in Bali. Are you getting feedback?
A little bit, but I can hear you. I'm just going to mute myself as well, so go ahead.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so that was after Wealth Dynamics Masters, not last year, the year before, and we all got stuck by the volcano. And I'd actually said to Angie on, I think it was the evening of the farewell dinner, and I've always wanted to bring Green School to New Zealand because Sophia, who's now 10, had been to grade 1 and grade 3 for a semester at Bali. And I just loved the fact that the whole philosophy of that curriculum. So and she said, oh, so do I. And we've been sort of around your work for 10 years and we're in New Zealand and never really connected. So we set off the lanterns and we wrote, it was about the Green School and that's what we're going to do. So I sent them off. And then when the volcano went off, we're just floating around the pool and we said, right, what are we going to do? And within 2 hours, me being a supporter, well, I know Alan and I know Sean and let's just ring them and tell them what we want to do. And within seriously 2 hours, we were on the way. And then, as you know, through the next 18 months, with Angie being the creator and me being the supporter, it's just it just works so well. So she was having investors in her own preschools and property. So we're sort of out looking for property, location-based business. And we didn't really get much momentum going because we've obviously got our own businesses as well as trying to create this third thing. So the time wasn't going into that either. So, and then of course, you went to Abundance 360 and came up with a plan. And it's like, right, we're now not Green School New Zealand. We will jump into a bigger flow and make a bigger difference. And let's go and be part of that team. So yeah, so that's sort of how it all evolved.
I'm just unmuting here. Okay. And so that thing about just giving the time to be around the right people, having a sense that there's someone you want to work with, or that you feel you're aligned in purpose, because both of you are very much in education, linking that towards that. And now, like in the same way that, because we're now doing junior school, linking that to one thing will always lead to another. And of course, we're now talking about the promotion of actually having the first juniors educators coming on board, having the first, camps that we're then going to be running, so all that, like for everyone listening, if you already are looking to make a difference for younger kids and the next generation, that's all coming this year. And that basically is about linking and connecting in with others, where then your trust grows. And in this network, it's the same thing. I will always look first at those who are part of our network, who I trust, because it's a whole lot easier to have someone you trust and then basically build things together than it is to basically look for someone who you think might have competence, but then you've got to spend all that time on trust. Because trust, high trust equals short run-up speed, right? It's like the more you can have trust, the faster it is to actually get things done without having to kind of worry, is this someone I can work with or not? Okay, so Rastika, I'm going to just come over to Alan. Alan, same thing. I'm going to ask you to share, once you then got, the traction and got things going, where do you now see that moving for you over the next couple of years of what's now possible?
Yeah, it was an interesting move, the whole fast forward and then coming to Masters. We were building a team, but I don't think I had a bunch of employees rather than actually people who were working with me process. Fortunately, and I think it was very intuitive, Vicky is a deal maker supporter, and we also had Heather and Rachel, who were both Lord accumulators. So we actually had the 1, 2, 1, 2, 3 in place. But understanding that concept, suddenly said, wow, this actually works, and it takes it forward. And then we could infill with the others. And like I said, we've grown to about 15, 16 in the office, and we seem to keep on employing people. And I would say we've got a very engaged bunch of people. I've stepped right back from the management of it because I don't need to do that. They all work as fairly functional teams. That gives us now the opportunity to really run a completely different agenda. I've stepped away from the day job, which is the delivery and the consultancy. We've got a 2020 vision that is the global partnership working with yourself. That is now connecting to masses more people on platforms like the Genius U, etc. Just gives us a different scope, and it's also a different shift because we were very focused, like consultancy, buy my product, buy my product, buy my product. The interesting thing about the trust and flow piece, because we have actually accumulated a lot of kudos in a small niche, and I think those two things go together as well. We're a very small niche and play a big fish in it. I was told, well, build your big network and then recruit some of those as customers and then make some of those clients and sell your high ticket stuff on the end. We didn't have to do that. We just sold the high ticket from day one. We're selling 10 and 15 grand products to a market that has never bought anything like that from a management point of view. So it was interesting that we could do that in that time. But what happened, I was doing it all, and now I've got a team, and now I've got to get the team into flow. So the key for us is actually this team flow, which is a whole different kettle of fish. It's much harder work, but it's also hugely much more gratifying to see when it is working. And it's the other thing, the attractiveness of it, we don't recruit now. We just have people turning up saying, "Can we come and work?" Which is really gives us the momentum now to take this forward.
I think that this is the most fundamental part. Is that you don't have to chase. Like when you're at yellow level, you're bright yellow. When you're not chasing for the business because it's coming your way. When you're getting to green, you're bright green because people are chasing to have the job with you, as opposed to having to basically go out there looking for good people. You know, the Googles, the Facebooks of the world, they just have like hundreds of people every single day wanting a job with them. So how you build that attraction is critical, and it's because you're creating that culture and that environment and that success that comes out of it, as opposed to trying to chase the customers or trace the talent, which is super important as well. So I'm going to ask you both just one quick question, and then I'm going to, in fact, no, I'm going to leave the question at the end. My question was going to be, if there was one thing you want to share for those who were trying to make that step to go into, like getting into flow, like letting go of whatever was around them, do it. But I'm going to leave that to the very end as the last thing. I actually have some questions here, which I think was going to lead us directly into that anyway. So let me share the first one, which I think is really relevant. And I'm just taking, like you guys know, I'm going to be I'm going to go through all the questions for everyone on the video. The last video has been posted as well. But I want to, first of all, just make sure that we have a couple of these questions that Rasika and Alan can chip in on as well. So the first one here is from Jan Wyndham, who says, hey, Roger. Okay, so first of all, thanks so much for doing what you do. After taking the Wealth Dynamics test, I've turned my business life around completely. I'm a creative profile of lots of dynamo. Taking the test, I tapped into my unique ability to come up with ideas, position myself as an ideas guy, helping me come up with ideas that can go exponentially bigger, right? So, here's what I'm trying to do right now. Partner with these people, make a business with them under one brand, a bit like Branson does. Help these people raise funding from 5 million and up to create the new business. Anyway, I did one of these sessions for free, got a great review, and now ready to get paying clients. So obviously at that infrared level, just getting started with an idea, right? Which is exactly what I was talking about, is what's going to stop you from getting to flow. I've been out of the game for 5 years due to mental illness and has no network. So my question is, how would you go? So this is absolutely about digging a hole in the desert where you're going to spend lots of time designing something that no one's yet saying they want. I mean, you've got someone who says, I want to give you a testimonial, which is a good start. But the next step is not going to go out trying to find someone who's going to pay you money when you don't yet have a stronger track record, right? So, but the question is, so how do I go about securing my first client when you're starting out? I have a webinar providing value and selling a solution. I can tell you straight away that's not the way to do it, because the first client does not require a webinar. It requires you actually getting really deeply interested in what someone's up to. And if there is a way to make them like $1 million, believe me, they'll be willing to pay you 5%, 10% of that if they're actually going to make that kind of money, right? Easily. But you've got to prove they can do it, and that's all about the predictability. You can actually do it. Even if you said, look, I'll do it and I'll get paid on results, already you take your risk away, and someone's much more likely to do that, right? But it still means finding the customer before you start looking for the product. So, and thank you so much for what you do. Thank you, Wyndham. Here's Wyndham's site. I just decided to open this as well. Giving us a new selling, get an idea to go 10 or 100 times bigger, get it funded, and here's what he's sharing on his idea here. So I'm gonna come over to Rasika, because this is all about education. What would you share for the likes of Jan and others, just from that question he's got and seeing his approach right now, as what you would suggest the next step should be for him?
Yeah, your digging in the desert analogy is I just love that. I often hear myself talking to people about that. My suggestion would be that find someone who's too busy, they've got too much flow, and basically go and be of value to them. Get them to pay you, so that then you start to build the trust, like you were saying before. So then you build the trust to build your way up. But I think for me, it would be go and find someone who's really busy doing what you love doing, that is in alignment, and get paid to do it and build the trust. So that's what I'd say.
Great, thank you, Rasika. Alan, anything you'd add to that?
As a creator profile, I think one of our biggest dangers is we get overexcited about our own ideas and just want it to happen tomorrow. Like I said, I've got a pretty good business. I'm getting into this is the next phase, but it takes a long time. There are shortcuts, and you're one of them. But I would say to Jan or anyone in that creator mode with a great idea, go, as Rastika said, go and find someone else who's already doing it and doing it well in another industry or the same industry, and figure out what they're doing and just follow that spectrum pattern, because it is the pathway to get there. It takes longer, but if you, as a creator, you see it as a process of the next iteration, it gets easier, and then the time thing comes out of it. So yeah, it just takes time, but the end point is great.
And do realize you're taking two unprovens next to each other when you say, I've got a product that no one's buying yet, I'm going to do a webinar to try and sell it, right? So you've got two things there. You've got one, which is like, do you actually have a product that's good enough to sell? Which at the moment, obviously, no one's bought it yet, so the answer is not yet. And then number two, do you know how to do a good webinar, right? You're way better off, and if it doesn't work, you don't know, is that because I didn't do a good webinar and I didn't get people to webinar, or is it that I didn't get a product? You have no way of knowing because you've got basically too many variables. But if you actually started by saying, well, am I more likely to try and sell the product I want to sell by trying to find someone and convince them to buy it, or more likely to make money by getting good at doing a webinar, which I want to learn how to do anyway, and go to someone who's already selling lots of good product, then I can say, you're selling a lot of good product, but I tell you what, if I help you do a webinar, I believe I could have made another $10,000 for you. And you know what, I'm quite happy that I just experiment and I give it a go, right? I mean, like, we'll go to some of your database, we'll get some list, we'll organize this webinar, I could interview you, it's gonna take like an hour of your time, but if this works out and you make the $10,000 out of that, hey, just pay me 10%. I mean, like $1,000 is good for me, you make 9,000 out of it, we'll see if this works. But you're way more likely to make money by just testing one thing and knowing you're actually passing on, something that actually makes money. And every time I've started with anything new, I'll start at that level of orange to say, hey, you're already making money, I'll help you make more. And that's very good for Dynamos and for Blazers. Whereas for 10-person stills, it's a lot easier to go to someone saying, hey, you're already making money, but you're losing it because you're not organized or because you're not looking after your customers. I'll help you do that, and I'll actually make you a higher profit, right? I'll cut your costs, I'll make more. Let's give this a go, experiment. I'll work on results. And now they're willing to pay you off the results of what you're doing because they didn't have to make the guess, is this someone that I'm actually having to take a risk on or not? There's no risk because you're the one that's delivering the results before you even ask them for the payment. And all you're paying for is your time, right? But that time is going to be spent one way or the other, so you might as well do it on something that has the chance that you're going to get paid out of it as well. I'm going to give one more example of this as a question to answer. This one's about customers, which is as important, but this is a really interesting one because this is where you've got someone in Alison. So Alison's asked this. She has the Crew Coach. I'm going to open the Crew Coach as well, so you see this one. And her question is, any tips? I'll just open this while it's whirring. My internet's a bit slow. Any tips for getting greater engagement in member groups? We have a group similar to your Facebook member group. So this is basically like a free group, right? So, we have a community manager. So think about this like, people are all there, they're getting good content, lots of value, but they're not actually engaging. Okay, so obviously at the end of the day, for someone to really want to work with you, they want to know there's engagement going on. And this is the Crew Coach here. It's very much about actually exactly what it says. The Crew Coach is actually helping crews to use, using Wealth Dynamics and other tools to become really in flow. Pardon the pun. So this is basically what Alison does. So this whole idea of actually getting people engaged or having people engaged, what it is that makes people engaged. Alan, I'm going to come to you first. I know you tend to be working directly with all the vets, but from the point of view of your experience of community and getting people wanting to actually be motivated to take action, what would you share on that?
Really difficult. I notice there's a question higher up from Eunice who asks about lawyers or solicitors, trying to get them engaged in a similar way. We find with vets that they're very much tempo, steel, energy. Facebook in an older age group, they're sort of the 45 plus business owners. They're not naturally Facebook social media people. In fact, they tend to scoff it. But they do have a lot of younger people working for them, vets and nurses, who are very social media savvy and love being on it. And what we've done here is actually we've engaged people further down that chain as the conduit back to them, because all these practices have a business Facebook page and social media, etc. But to get direct response from our guys is really difficult. One or two, but most of them not. So we broadened it out and made the practice the member of it, and that gets them more engaged from that perspective. But we find for our guys, they like the face-to-face. So we do more experiential stuff. We use social media just to advertise it, but we don't really get our engagement there. We've built much more a human community, so we have to work a lot harder at that. And we don't. And
you're working with a very time-poor client base, so they don't have a lot of time anyway, so they're not going to be doing a lot necessarily that way.
Imagine.
Yeah. And again, within the vet community, I think Anthony's done a really good job with this with Webinar Vet, where the community happens because they're around a particular type of learning. So they've got a reason to be there, where they're learning something very specific, which is definitely one of the key things. And Rasika, what would you share?
Probably two things. You did a really, I don't know where you did it, but the content that you gave us on how to go viral, was it 3 steps or 4 steps on how to go viral? That was very good content. So if she could source that somewhere, I would suggest that would be a great place to start. I think that's the second thing is ask them what they want to engage with, because again, it's like creating a product. If no one wants it, it's the same with the content for engagement. If no one wants it, so actually going and actually asking what do they actually want to see created. What's there might not be what they want.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And what the one thing I would just share in addition to this, which is when you're at the base level, you are not going to get connection and you're not going to get that flow of activity because the volume's not yet there, and more importantly, you haven't yet established a culture because there's not enough people to establish a culture. So what people always do in any situation is they'll do whatever the room, whether it's a virtual room like a Facebook group or whether it's a physical room, whatever's going on in the room. I mean, just try, walking into a library and see what happens. Like everyone goes, oh, everyone's quiet here. I better be quiet as well, right? If you show up at a Facebook group and no one's posting anything, you're going to immediately think, oh, I better not post anything here. So you've already, by having a quiet group, already killed it, right? It's just the way it is. Now, how do you actually get it going again? You get it going again by playing a game, like creating a promotion plan, having an exciting thing happening, right? Having, we're going to set up, 10 crews and we're actually going to go on this competition to see who actually is having the highest improvement over, the next, 6 weeks. And here's when it starts and everyone's on board and everyone's going to share every day. And like the moment you actually give someone the rules of the game, how it's going to work, there's a beginning point and it kicks off, then it works, right? But it's the other way around. Don't go looking for the engagement, go looking for basically the purpose that someone even would want to engage in the first place, then give them the space where they can engage, and then of course they will. But if you haven't given them the motivation or the incentive to want to engage, there's no purpose for them to do it. They're not just going to do it for the sake of it, right? No, we've all got enough stuff out there that we should be doing instead, right? So it's exactly the same. Like, why don't I have flow of communication? It's exactly the same. Why don't I have flow of cash? It's exactly the same thing. You go to where that basically you're actually creating that first, and then drive it from there. I want to share 2 things. I'm going to come back on that question I just shared and ask Ristika and Alan. 2 things that we're doing at the moment that's coming up. I shared there's some exciting things that are happening. So here is a couple of things I want to share with you. First one is going to be what we are about to be launching with our Blue Level. Some of you already know about this, but I'm just going to give you a little bit of an update of what's been happening behind the scenes in terms of environment and connection, right? Like here is first share here, and it is what we're doing in the next month with Entrepreneur Resource. So you all know. You would have heard us talking about this. We're having an IPO. This is very much Blue Level. We've actually raised the first $2 million of the $3 million, which some of you are actually involved in, which is super awesome. And what's actually happening now with this whole plan, where we're listing on Tropex, which is the Seychelles Stock Exchange. This is Seychelles, that's what it looks like. This is us basically growing to 50 beach clubs and 5 resorts in the next 5 years. You're going to see some news on this. Anyone for even like $1,000 can be an investor where you have ownership on all these resorts and beach clubs that we have. So we're basically making it not just co-learning and co-working, we're making it co-investing, right? So we're working with Wealth Migrate, we're putting it all on their platform. It's very exciting. Look out for the news on that. It's all going to happen in the next month or so. We're obviously going to come to our own, community first and say, hey, if you want to be part of it, and it's going to be just like any IPO. It's going to be oversubscribed, and it's kind of like one of those first come first serve based things we'll do for the ones that kind of come in earlier. And we have an impact investor retreat we're going to be running, and that's going to be really for those that are most active within this IPO. So we're turning the whole thing into an exciting game, but one where everyone that's coming in is able to invest and share in the growth of what we're doing. This is our board. We have a board here. We had a board meeting this morning. Jeremy's part of it. Some of you know Jeremy. He's got his own accounting practice. He's come on board. We have Lisa, who has been the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer of Ammon Resorts. Many of you might have heard of Ammon Resorts. It's got a brilliant brand. It's grown all around the world. And Dennis Bois has been the finance manager for all the 1,400 Radissons around the world for 15 years now. So these guys have come on board to really support us growing it, which is super exciting. So that's all happening. We're buying Tao in the next month. So that's all happening is one thing I wanted to share that we're in the midst of. The second thing I wanted to share is what we're about to launch, which is going to mean that within 2 months from now, this Entrepreneur Mastermind will become a lot bigger. we're rebranding it from Entrepreneur Mastermind to Genius Entrepreneur Mastermind, which doesn't sound like a big difference, but it means instead of everyone here being known as e-masterminders, which is kind of what we've been having as a kind of weird like a way of describing everyone, everyone's going to be gems. Genius Entrepreneur Masterminds means everyone's going to be gems on this group. And what we're going to be launching is we're going to be launching an Entrepreneur Mentor certification, which is when we're going to be launching our micro degrees. We're doing a whole revamp on Genius U. Let me share just a few slides on that so you can kind of see what we're doing, because this one I'm very, 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 very excited about. And we're going to invite all of you to come in and play with us because we're going to be giving you all the tools. Because you're already part of Genius Entrepreneur Mastermind, it means that you're already
Oh no.
He's gone.
Yeah. The message filter, hang on.
certification that we're launching with Genius U. This is going to allow people not just to have the Genius X membership, which gives you basically the dashboard, the micro degrees. It's actually going to also give you a 12-week program. If you decide you want to come onto this, there's like a little top up for those who are actually part of Genius, the Entrepreneur Mastermind already. But we're doing a 12-week flow where we are going to be basically working through 12 micro degrees. We're taking all the missions, turning them into micro degrees. We're going to have 12 micro degrees where, like, how to use passion tests, how to use purpose tests, how to use Genius tests. You know, what about all the steps of the spectrum? How to, you know, we're actually going to add in the extras. So, you know, we've got the one which goes from infrared to red. We're going to add the one from red to orange as the mission. You know, we've already got from orange to yellow. We're going to add the one yellow to green. This is all happening next 12 weeks, starting from July. We're also going to be launching a 3-part mini-series video. This is what I've been videoing last week. We've got amazing video footage of the entrepreneur movement. So this is actually a free opt-in where we're expecting 30 to 40,000 people to be joining this four video series, which is going to be basically launching at the end of this month. So you get that for free as well. You can kind of like watch along, and it's really awesome the way that we've built these out so that you can really understand everything around what it is to be part of the entrepreneur movement and what's coming in the next 15 years. So that's going to be something that all links into this right now as well. And at the end of that, we're then going to give our Genius U 2.0 upgrade. We're introducing Genie, who is an actual AI, who is actually looking like a genie. And you can choose whether you're a female, male, what kind of genie you want. And Genie's going to show up every day on Genius U and basically say, hey, here's what you need to learn. Here's who you need to connect with based on who you are. So it's going to be real personalized learning. So Suraj and his team has been super busy on all of that. We're going to be launching the micro degree builder, which allows you to build your own micro degrees. We're going to have a dashboard, which allows you to see how much money you're earning, how many people are you know, on your network that are in the system, what your own performance is in terms of how many Genius dollars you're earning. So everything you do now, whether you're posting something, whether you're taking a step in the micro degree, you're getting Genius dollars, and you can redeem those Genius dollars for actual stuff, right? So we're actually creating our own currency in here as well. And we've got our opportunity section, which is like Opportunities Knocks, everything from the apprentice program through to people saying, you know, like, you know, Rastika saying, I've got this new opportunity for Genius U, Genius educators come on board. You can build your own micro degree off the back of all of that as well. So this is all happening in the next month. And then we're going to have all these people coming on board to actually go on a 12-week process with us, where I'm going to be everywhere, from going out to Colorado, where I'm meeting up with a bunch of the partners for our big launch in October, going to Auckland for our Fast Forward, going to Melbourne for Fast Forward, having our team meetings, taking you behind the scenes on all of this, showing you the IPO as it actually launches, going out to Tao, showing you how we're actually teaching the new team, you know, our culture, and then going from that straight into the Impact Investor Retreat. And we go all the way through to, you know, my visit to Silicon Valley, my visit to where we're connecting with other people there as well. And we're going through these 12 weeks through 12 micro degrees, which half of them are brand new, and half of them you might have used, but you're going to see how you can actually mentor other people through this as well, because we need that help. We've got so many people that actually want help from other people. And then, of course, that then leads into the ability for you to actually generate income from all of this as well, and create your own micro degree. So whether Phil does one on music and puts it in there, whether, you know, Alan does one on vets and puts it in there, you know, that's basically something you can do, and you can charge for that as well. And then basically, effectively, it becomes like, you know, your own storefront for your mentoring, which is super exciting. So that is, we'll obviously tell you more about it. I'm not going to go through all of it now, but just a bit of a taste of what's coming up. So with that being shared, let me just pause on that and come back to Rastika and Alan with my question, which is, if there was one thing you would share for those that haven't yet made that leap to go follow the flow, what would be your biggest piece of advice that you would like to leave them with? And I'm going to start first of all with Rastika.
Well, this is really basic, and that is just the pre-flight checklist and the flight plan, and going to page 10 of the flight plan and looking at the rhythm. That's what got me out of infrared all the way through to bright yellow, now bringing team members on board. So, and I would check, I'd be up at 6 o'clock every morning, and I would be checking that flight plan and that pre-flight checklist, and I still do. I've meeting with Jeremy, he's going to be our CFO on a personal level, so he's keeping me in check with that red stuff still. So those two things, like, that's what dragged me up, was amazing. So I know it sounds basic, but that's what I would suggest.
Awesome, very cool. Very cool. And it's absolutely right? Get into flow first. Flow creates clarity. Get into the rhythm, and then it opens a space for you to then go, here's what I need you to be doing next. And what about for you, Alan?
Yeah, I'd agree with that entirely. And that whole wealth spectrum process is really what's got me here. Some of it intuitively and some of it by following the rules. But my tip would be, I think it's other people that keep you in flow. I wouldn't be here without these other people who hold me to flow, because they're in flow and we have this sort of reciprocal action. And my job is to get out of their way so they can actually get their job done and get into flow themselves. So that's probably my tip. It's other people that get you there.
Absolutely. Very cool. All right. Well, I'm going to thank both of you so much for being on the call. Thanks, everyone who has been listening. You can post in the Facebook chat whatever's the biggest distinction you'd like to actually share, and any final messages you want to leave for Rastika and Alan here as well. I'm super looking forward to the coming months with both of you and the exciting things we're going to be creating. So thank you very much, Rastika, for joining the call. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Alan, for joining the call. It's been awesome.
Okay, thanks, Roger.
All right, we'll catch up with you all later, and I will be giving you a video to answer all the rest of the questions. Thanks a lot, guys. See you all later.
Bye.
Bye.